And action. So, welcome back to another exciting episode of the MCC live stream series looking at the Apple Teacher CPD program, totally free from Apple. Let's get our introductions done first. My name is Richard Child. I'm the Education Manager for MCC Digital. We are an Apple authorized education specialist helping schools up and down the country get their impact with iPad and Mac. And with me, as always, is Mr. David Kirtland, Apple Professional Learning Specialist and all-round guru, all things iPad and Mac. And we've looked at Keynote, my favourite. We've looked at Pages. We're going to look at numbers today. So just a spreadsheet, right?
Well, it is. It's the unloved one of the three productivity suite here. But it does do some really amazing things, and it is really quite useful. So hopefully, we'll kind of introduce people to the type of thing you can use it for, and how you might start using that in the classroom.
Excellent. It's all about the data and how you present it.
It is. So let's just remind ourselves about Apple Teacher. So this is the Apple Teacher Learning Center, and we sign in here with our Apple IDs. So as we're here, we jump into our skills for iPad, and we've already worked through 3 of the badges now. We've had a look at the skills we need to collect the iPad badge. We've spent some time with Pages. We've just done Keynote, and we're on to the last of the productivity ones today. So we're going to work through the numbers badge today. So these are the things that we're really going to cover here and just kind of find our way around this app. And one of the things you'll notice straight away is that once you open up Pages, yes, it is the spreadsheet one, but it all works in the same kind of way. So if you know Keynote and you know Pages, actually we're a long way into being able to use the numbers app as well. So let's start off. Let's have a look at the basics, and we'll jump in and have a look at some of the table formatting here and our first look at formulas before we jump back to the Apple Teacher Resource Center. So numbers, as we open it up, like all of the other apps, we have that plus to create a new document. And just like the others, we have this huge list of templates that we can use as a good starting point. So we do have the blank ones, but if you're doing something that you know is a bit more graphical, there's these templates to get us started. And in fact, actually, there's a section down at the bottom for education. So even things like creating school calendars is all set up for you there. It updates all the time, so the years are always right. We just put the term dates in. Or there's some templates there to start creating your own grade books if that's what you want to do. So there's some great starting points there, really, with these templates. But today, we're going to jump in and use a blank one. So we're starting right at the beginning. So just looking around the app, we'll notice there's our table. It is looking a lot like a spreadsheet. It's not quite filling the full screen. We've got some blank space around it, but that's a bit of a hint really at how we start using numbers in the classroom. And just looking up in the top right-hand corner, there's the familiar things. We should recognize some of these icons by now. So we've got the usual plus button there to add new content to our document here. So that's the usual things like media and tables and so on. We've got that paintbrush that we've seen quite a lot already. That lets us change any of the formatting options or any of the things like text size and so on. And we've got that collaboration tool, which we've explored in both Keynote and Pages. It's exactly the same in numbers, where we can send links to people so we can collaboratively work on the same document. We do have that new icon there in the middle, the circle with the 3 lines. That's just a little filter tool. It lets us separate out some of the data. But other than that, most of the options we have there should be fairly familiar to anyone who's worked through the previous 2 badges. So let's crack on. Let's jump into our spreadsheet. So we've got the cells here. We've got the one we select highlighted in blue. So let's start populating it with some data and seeing what we can do with it there. So we'll just do a simple example here. So maybe we've got a topic in class. Maybe we're doing about food and nutrition. And we might just start off with a very simple, quick round the room of let's think about our favorite food and let's just get some numbers in there. Let's see what we like. So things that might top up, I'm going to put down in my left-hand column here. Things that might come up if we ask the children, well, what is your favorite food? Maybe you're having a treat this weekend after your first week back at school. What would you like? And if we just double tap in there, it brings up the keyboard as we would expect. So we can type in here, or we've got those grayed out numbers or icons above the letters where we can just swipe down to select, but we're just going to use the letters here. So I think pizza will probably pop up in one of those answers. Chicken nuggets is always going to appear on that list. So let's put chicken there. Maybe we'll have burgers and chocolate's got to appear on it as well. Okay, and that'll do for the moment. We're just putting some data into our spreadsheet. And if we add some numbers to those, let's say, what can I go with 11? But just before we do that, we've got our standard keyboard here. This is one of the new things in Numbers that we don't get in Keynote or Pages. We have two different styles of keyboard. Now, we've already said we can get to the numbers by swiping down on it, or we can switch to our keyboard view. But we get this option here of ABC, that's our text keyboard, or we have the specific number keyboard for this app. And this switches it over to look a bit more like a calculator view, and it gives us some of those nice functions that we might explore as we get further into the app. So it's a quick way to put the numbers in here. So let's put that in. What did we say? 11 children chose pizza. Let's go with a few on there. 7 for chicken, let's say, or 6 for burgers, and 5 chose chocolate. So we've got some numbers in there. Now, once we've got those numbers, we can start exploring how we might present that information. Now, I've got a title for my table. Let's double tap on there and let's call it Favorite Food for now. And we've got quite a big table, but we don't have a lot of data at this stage. We've just got those 4 figures in there. And one of the nice things here is if we look at the end of the table, we've got this little icon, the circle with 2 lines in it. And I have one on the vertical column as well. But if I grab that, I can just push these rows and columns in just to focus us on the information we need. If I need more lines, I just pull it back out and I can expand the size of my spreadsheet. Now, of course, that gives me all this blank space around my table, which is great when we come to thinking about how we analyze this data, how we present it back, and really getting the children comfortable with handling and manipulating and talking about these figures and these results. So first things we can do with this, really simple. Maybe I do want to just add an extra row below this and get the app. If I select these, I can have a few options here. It gives me this black menu pop up, and I've got a cell actions option there. This is exactly the same as the green button that's just appeared in the corner. And if I tap that, I've got some quick and easy options of things I can do with my spreadsheet now. So things like quick formulas are there. So if I want to check I have included all the children in my class, I just might want to do a quick sum and just add up that column. And there it goes on the bottom. It's just told me there are 29 results in that column now. So if I've 29 children, I've counted them all. So a quick and easy way of tallying up a column there. Now, as we're going a bit further, let's put a title in here and let's put some text and say choices. Maybe we want to just pull this slider out and bring in another column. Maybe we're asking the children to work out the average price. So let's have a look at the cost of some of these menu items. And let's see how we can deal with things like currency in our spreadsheet. So let's put some prices in. So pizza, let's go to our keyboard. Let's say $3.99. Chicken, let's put $4.99 in there. Maybe we have a really fancy burger. Let's put $5.99. And chocolate, we've got a big chocolate bar, £1.25, we'll say. So as you can see with the spreadsheet, it's formatting it where we'd expect. It's aligned to the right. We can change that using our paintbrush, but I'm going to select that column now. And if I tap on my paintbrush, I've got a few options straight away from my paintbrush. This is what lets me format my tables. So easily enough, I can change the color. I can decide what this looks like and what's easiest to read. I do have an option here for changing the headers and the footers here to see whether I need these title rows in or not. I'm happy with that for the moment. But if I go to the format option, it gives me some options here for defining the type of content that's in these cells. So in our case, we put some monetary value in here. So if we just select the currency option, it formats it appropriately for the currencies. Put that pound sign for us in there. If I'm working with different currencies, we can change this here. We can change the decimal place and so on. Maybe the children are researching the cost of holidays or something like that, and we're looking for average prices if we're doing something along those lines. So there's a lot of options there. Maybe we're doing a project with times. We're timing things to happen. We can use times in here and dates and so on. So there's some nice formatting options that just kind of tidy things up for us and make it look a bit more readable depending on the content that we're putting in there. So we can work with this table. We can put more content in it. We can keep it going, or we can think about how we might present this information back. So I want to just select these two columns. So this is the header. This is telling me our content, our pizza, our chicken, our burgers, etc., and the number of children who have chosen each of those items. And if I want to select these now using that cell action or the green button down here, I have the option to create a new chart. And this chart lets me present this information in a different way. We did have a look at this when we jumped into the Keynote badge. We had a look actually at the interactive badges, interactive charts here, sorry, when we're doing the Keynote badge. But I think for this one, we'll just do a standard 2D chart, and we can select different colors. I think we'll go for an orange and red one at the minute. And I think this information might be presented quite nicely as a pie chart. And when I select that, it presents that information really easily. It's worked out all the percentages for us, and it's given us a nice graphical overview. And we can align this and we can put it wherever we like it on the page to just make the presentation quite nice. And one of the things we can do is even pull apart the wedges if we want. So maybe we want to highlight one of these wedges and just make it stick out a little bit more like that. So when we talk about it and explain it, we know exactly what we're talking about here. So we're doing quite well with this now. We've looked at working with the tables. We've looked at our first formulas there. We've created that quick little sum. And we've also looked at creating charts. Let's just have a quick look back to Apple Teacher and just remind ourselves of the topic. So we've looked at the basics. We've had a quick look at formatting and formulas. Let's move on now. We've already had a first look at charts, but let's go back and look at functions and how we can start manipulating this data in a bit more detail. We've also got a few nice things on here like shapes and the drawing tools, which we have looked at in Pages and Keynote. They work really nicely actually with numbers. So functions, let's have a quick look. So we've got this space now. We've got our first table. We've represented the data as a pie chart. Now, one of the nice things about numbers, and this is fairly unique here, is that I can now add more content to this workbook and this space here. So I think actually I'm going to add another table. So I've got kind of a spreadsheet inside a spreadsheet here. And of course, with the little markers down the side, those circles with the two lines, I can change the columns. We do get another option. We get the circle inside a circle there. And this one lets me move it around a page. So I can kind of format things around by just grab and hold this. And I think I'll put my two tables next to each other. And if we're going to our format option, let's have a look at our format here. So we do get these options to change the style and the color. I'm going to go to my header option, and I don't think I want that heading in here. I'm going to take that one off, and it's taken out that first header option in my chart there. And I think I just want 2 lines for this table. And change our title. Let's call this analysis. So this is where we're going to think about some of the data we might have put in there. So we've already done a quick formula within a column to sum the number of choices there, the number of children who answered that question. So let's do the same here. Let's go to our text option, responses. And we're going to do the same thing, but this is a bit more complicated because we're going between different charts at the moment. So this now becomes more of a function than a formula. A function is just a bit more of an involved formula, really. So that's where we want the outcome. That's where we want the result of our data to come in here. So when I select it, I get my green buttons pop up in the bottom corner, and there's a new one, that little keyboard icon there. And if I bring that up now, it does what we expect. It will bring up that keyboard. We've already said we have these 2 options. We've got the keyboard, the text keyboard there, and we've got that kind of calculator style numbers keyboard with the number icon there. But over on the right-hand side, we've got another one of these circles that's got an equal sign in the middle of it. And if I bring that one up, this brings up kind of like a hybrid keyboard. So this is my text keyboard, but it has got all those symbols there. And we can use this to start writing and creating our own formulas now. I also have this little bit of help with this FX icon here. And this is functions which are pre-made for us. And there's some really useful ones in there. So if there's no pre-made ones, we can start using these icons along the top. But let's have a quick look. So these are the standard ones, and I've got lots of categories. There's loads of things in here that we can start working through if we want to. But for now, let's just do that simple sum. and it will say along the top of my keyboard now, the sum value, and we need to tell it what our values are. So I'm just going to tap these cells. And as I tap them, it colors them and it highlights them in that little heading bit on the keyboard there. So if I add those up, I'm going to press the tick and say that's my formula now. And it enters the number into the cell that we selected over in that analysis table. So we've linked those two tables together with that formula. And as you would expect, if one of these children changes their mind and they don't want a burger anymore, so we'll knock that one down to 5, it will update that cell over here because we've got the formula linking the two together. Let's do one more. Let's put the average price in. So we'll label it average price. And we'll do exactly the same again. So this is the cell we want the calculation to take place. So let's use that keyboard icon. We'll press that circle with the equals and we'll use one of our preset. And we're going to go for average this time. So let's go for the average between those cells there. And if I press the tick, there we go, it enters the average there. £4.06 is the average price of those items, and it's done all those calculations for us. So we do have a lot of flexibility here to start manipulating and presenting some of these bits of data back. So back to Apple Teacher. We've had a look at these main things now. We've looked at formatting formulas and functions, and we've put a chart in there. So let's think about these bits that make numbers really unique. So including the shapes and the drawing tools and inserting some of the media is where it gets quite interesting. So back to numbers, and there's the information we presented. Now, I mentioned before that once you've got this empty space, it is kind of like a workspace or a bit of a workbook. And I'm on my first sheet, and up in the top left, I can add more sheets to my workbook. So let's add this here. And now I've got a second space now to start putting our data in. I can always flick between the two. So it is almost like a notebook or a workbook of information that we might want to present. So we've done that first little bit around favorite food. We might want the children to now go and do a little bit of an investigation into the type of food that they have maybe at home. So they could go into the cupboards and pull packets out, and they could look for those traffic light colors that tell us things like how healthy a piece of food is, whether it's got lots of fat content or whether there's lots of salt in it. They're on all packaging, so it's nice for children to go and start understanding some of that. So maybe they're doing that little investigation to go and find that content. So let's start putting our table together. I don't need all these columns in this table, but let's put some headings down. So it will show them the fat content. It will show them saturated fat as well. It'll also show them the sugar content and the salt content of food. So that's looking okay. So we can get rid of some of these lines here. And maybe that first piece of food that they found was a burger, because that was one of the popular ones that the children liked. So they found a burger there and they found the details there. And I think I'm going to put a heading in here. Say this is grams. So it will tell you how many grams of each of these items there is in this food. So let's pull our burger out, and they've probably found that this particular burger has, let's say, 13 grams of fat, and this one has 5.9 grams of saturated fat and 0.8 grams sugar, and just a little bit of salt, 0.7 grams. So we've got the beginnings of our table there. We've got some data in there. Now we've got this, we've got all this space, and this is where we can start using some of those unique features to present this information and make it look quite easily readable and understandable and help the children present their analysis of these figures. So I'm going to place this down a little bit lower, and then if I tap the plus, we've seen how we can add tables and charts. We have the shapes icon. Now we have explored these a little bit with Keynote and numbers, Keynote and pages, but they're here in numbers as well. And there's dozens and dozens of these. So let's see if we've got something that's appropriate for this. So let's search for a burger. There it is. There's always something. There's so many of these. So I'm going to make that a bit smaller, and let's give that a nice little heading to that option there. So using our paintbrush, let's give it a color. Let's make that one yellow. And we've got the beginnings of our information. Now, maybe we want to present this information graphically. So as we did before, let's highlight the areas of the chart that we want to present as a graph. Let's press our cell button and create a new chart. Now, last time we did a pie chart. I think a 2D bar chart might look quite nice this time. So there we go. We can see easily now next to that, we've got a very high fat content, quite a lot of saturated fat, but not a lot of sugar or salt. So it's presenting that information, and I can resize this to fit our layout. So let's make it a bit smaller, and let's place it underneath that table there. So there we go. We've got our burgers. So maybe the children now want to do a bit of a comparison. So they've found 2 or 3 other pieces of food and started looking at the labels and working out the content and so on. So let's put those in. Now, I've already got this chart, so I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to paste it. So we've got the same chart again, but this time it wasn't a burger they found. Maybe it was some cereal. This time we've got some different figures, so let's just update the figures. So what did we find in the cereal? Not very much fat at all. Even less saturated fat. A little bit of sugar in there. What did we have? 1.7 grams and a little bit of salt. So we've got our cereal there, and let's just line these up. And you do get those little guidelines, those little yellow lines that help you know when things are more or less lined up. Let's go back to our shapes. And this is just how flexible they are. Let's see what comes up if we search for something like cereal. Oh, we've got a bowl, so that works quite nicely. So let's place that one on the top. Let's give that another color. Let's give that a green color. And again, let's create another chart. So cell actions and create a new chart. Let's go for another 2D one so we can compare these. And let's make them about the same size and line them up. So they're looking something like. And we'll do one more. So we've got a final one to compare it to. I think the last piece of food they found, let's go for a pizza. And let's adjust those figures so that they represent what they found in the pizza. So lots of fat in this pizza, lots of mozzarella on it, a little bit of sugar, and a little bit of salt as well. So we've got our numbers in there. And again, let's line that one up. Let's find our shape. So let's see if there's a pizza in there. There we go. And we'll put our icon above the top. Just make it look nice and graphical. We can clearly see what we're looking at there. Give it a color. And let's add our chart just as before. So cell actions, final chart there. We'll have our 2D one and put it over here. So let's make sure it's about the same size. Okay, so that's looking quite good. We've got a nice graphical representation. However, if we're working with this data, we have got 3 separate graphs here, and it does get quite difficult to work out exactly which data set we're looking at here. Now, I've made these a bit small, so we've lost some of the labels. So let's just widen these up, and we can see the full labels on the columns there. And we might need to spend a bit of time just fiddling with these so that they are the same size. But our scales are really quite different at the moment. So this is, we can see looking at the numbers, the cereal is much healthier than the other two, but it's not really looking like that on the graph. So we need to fix that axis so that we've got the same scale. So let's tap on the chart there. And let's have a look at our settings with our paintbrush. And we've got a few options here for the chart and the style, but under the data tab, we can set the y-axis scale. And by default, the maximum there is set to auto. So it will be around about the right size for the chart data that's in there. But if we want to standardize this so they're all on the same measurement scale here, we need to look at our highest level. So we've got one here that's about 24. What was it in the pizza? 23.8 grams of fat. So if we set our maximum scale for that y-axis, let's put 25 in. So the set there and do this for all 3 of these. They're all working then on the same standardized scale. So let's put that one in, and the same for the last one. Paintbrush into the data and the y-axis scale, maximum of 25. So now we've got the same information. I might have to move these down a little bit because they need a bit more space. But we can see that information in a much more visually understandable way because they're all on the same scales now. There we go. They're about the same size and on the same scale. And we can see completely now, just looking at that, how much healthier the cereal is than the pizza, for example. We might even want to go in here and edit the references, where we can, not the references, edit the series, and we can change the color of that. Maybe we want to make it a bit more appropriate and make it a red color because that's the unhealthy one there. So we're sticking with our traffic light theme for it. So a really nice way of presenting that information graphically. Looking a long way from that original spreadsheet now, but we are using 3 separate tables, presenting that data as charts. Now, one of the things that makes the Office suite, the productivity suite, really quite nice are the other tools that we have available to us within the app. So if we tap on the plus and look at our media tab, we've got things that we can bring into this. On top of all these shapes and these tables and these charts, we can use the photo and video options. We can record audio in. I've got the drawing tools. So I could use my finger to annotate this, or an Apple Pencil if we have one in a classroom. And maybe we want the children to start analyzing things like this. So we could be looking at these quite different results, but we could say, look, actually, all these have a very low salt content. And children can start labeling some of the things that they're working out and start presenting this information back. From there, they might then go and press plus and record some audio. And we get this simple way of adding their voice into this, the spreadsheet here to explain some of these facts and figures. So we'll hit that microphone. So we've just looked at the content of these different types of food. And although they are really quite different, they all have one thing in common, and that's a very low salt content. And if I tap insert, I now have this little speaker button, which is explaining our facts. And we're hearing the children's own voice explaining their understanding and their analysis of these bits of information. So there is so much that we can use within numbers now to start presenting and get the children explaining and talking about it. So that's the important part here, that they're working with these figures and they're explaining it and understanding their knowledge. So we're kind of there really with the main things that we need to think about here. We have one more option where I have that more button, the circle with the 3 dots. So I have the usual share, but of course I have export, so I can send it in different formats as well. So I could export this as a PDF or an Excel format, depending on what I've got in it and what I want to do with it. There are some options there for sharing as well. But a really simple way of presenting information and getting the children explaining it, which is where the strength is. Or of course, using those tools as a teacher could be part of the assessment process. They could be sending you this and using those features like the pencil and the audio recording, giving them a little bit of feedback. But really, that's kind of the first look at this stage at numbers, and hopefully enough to get you through the numbers badge.
Absolutely incredible. And I think we see fantastically there that it's not just about the data, it's how you present it. And that example we've got on our screens just there is just magical, isn't it? And yeah, those annotations just allows children to express their understanding of the data that they're working with and present it in a very meaningful way. So amazing. And while you were doing that, I was just checking the table tools in the Notes app are exactly the same as they are, or to a great degree, they are the same as they are in numbers. So it changed my life, David, again. Brilliant. So if you want to get stuck into Apple Teacher, and why wouldn't you? Because it's fantastic. Couple of QR codes to share with you there. The first one is the overview of the Apple Teacher program, which you'll find on Apple's website. And the lower QR code there is the all-important sign-ups page. Just sign in with your Apple ID. So that's your iTunes account, your Apple TV account, your many reasons to have an Apple ID. And this is another one. Get yourself signed up, get yourself in the program, and earn your badges. Get that Apple Teacher accreditation. Now, if you are a school that has ambition for iPad, maybe you've had some government iPads gifted to you in the last 6 months or so, and you're looking at how can we make that a little bit more impactful in our setting, then we have a workshop for you at MCC. We have Apple Planning Essentials. This is where we look at the 40 or so elements that go to make a successful technology deployment. We look at vision and strategy, we look at teaching and learning, we look at the environment. That being a network environment, the infrastructure around your devices in school, how to manage them, how to put the apps on there, how to control the settings, that kind of thing. We'll look at all of those things and we lay them out on a plan for you. So back in the olden days when we could come and do this in person, we actually brought a 2-meter sheet of paper, a big poster, and we would actually physically stick the cards on today. You can see an example there at a school in South Manchester. But we can do this virtually, and actually, we use the Numbers app to do it. So we create a virtual poster in Numbers, and then we share it as a PDF. So very appropriate for what we've just seen. If you would like us to come and talk to you about that, as I say, either in person or virtually, over the magic of Zoom or your conferencing app of choice, we'd be happy to do that. And please do get in touch. Drop us an email at education@mccdigital.com, and we'll get back in touch with you, and we'll work out next steps. But it's a fabulous workshop. The plan is your plan, and it's just really does tick all the boxes, and improves the chances of getting some great impact with these magical devices in your classrooms. So, Numbers. I always learn something, David, when I listen to you. And what have we got in store next time? In a couple of days' time, what have we got?
Well, we're nearly there now. We're cracking through these badges quite quickly. So we're finished with the productivity ones. We're onto the creative ones now. So we're going to start that off with iMovie.
iMovie. Blockbuster app. Absolute blockbuster. Looking forward to that. So do remember, we post these videos to the MCC YouTube channel. Feel free to share them with colleagues, and we'll be back for more in a couple of days' time. Stay tuned. We'll see you soon. Thank you very much.